many of you might know, I declined to come back the last couple times I played at St. Andrews, because I'd made my farewell in 2005, and I didn't want to come back and dilute that for what it was. It was fantastic then. But when I got the invitation this time to be an honorary citizen of St. Andrews and to follow Bobby Jones and Benjamin Franklin, I've got to come back. So to be back is fantastic. We brought the weather with us, in case you didn't notice that. But this is about the same weather we had in 2005 when we played. It was beautiful. And but anyway, it's great to be back. I'm back in actually the same hotel room that I was in, which Barbara and I have stayed in every time we've been in St. Andrews. And we're looking forward to a great couple of days.
Okay, thank you. We'll take some questions from the floor. We'll start with you, Brian, at the front, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. First of all, it's terrific to see you here. You've given us all so many wonderful memories over the years, and for that, we're all in this room eternally grateful for you. But what makes St. Andrews so special? What's so magical about the place?
Well, it could be part of my speech for tomorrow, but when I came here in 1964, I couldn't have believed that St. Andrews was a golf course that would still test the golfers of that time. Now that's what, 60 years ago? Close. Anyway, I didn't think it still tests the golfers this time. It's a magical golf course that's really, the conditions, the weather, where you actually choose to put the pins, whether the golf course gets dry or whether the golf course gets wet. All those things have made St. Andrews a magical place. And to believe that the game of golf essentially started here, and it just absolutely is mind-boggling to me that it still stands up to the golfers of today, and it does. And I tell you, if you get a little bit of weather, anytime you get it, you can tell you real fast how fast it makes you stand up to it.
You still get goosebumps when you come in and sit down?
Oh, I'm warm today. I'm not going to do that. I'm kidding. Of course, I mean, I'm thrilled and so forth about coming in. I mean, I drove into town. First time I've driven into town in, 18 years, 17 years. And it was interesting. I was coming into town and said, we used to go that way. No, we go this way. Oh, okay. But I mean, it was kind of it was fun just to come back to see where we were, see the gates, come into the little curves that we came into, and I always said St. Andrews was it looked like an old gray town until the Open came around. All of a sudden, it just lit up like a light, and it was beautiful. And St. Andrews, always the week of the Open Championship, is always beautiful. I imagine, actually, probably from anybody who makes a pilgrimage here to play this golf course feels that way.
Okay, we'll take the next question. Mark at the front right, please.
Hey, Jack. You talk about the course standing up to the players. I'm just wondering, it's supposed to be potentially pretty calm this week, and with the added length that these guys now have, do you wonder how low guys can go on this golf course?
You might shoot low. So what? That's sort of the way I look at it. I mean, they shoot low now compared to what they shot, 100 years ago. But, times change, and golfers get better, equipment gets better, conditions get better. They just, shoot low scores. But I don't think it really makes a whole lot of difference, frankly. It's St. Andrews, and it's what it is and how it will produce a good champion, always has, and that's why I look at it.
Okay, next question, Jeff, please.
Do you remember when you first came here, how much you knew about St. Andrews, and then how quickly did your affinity develop for the town and the golf course?
The only thing I knew about St. Andrews before I got here was my father came over with a couple of friends in 1959 when I was at Muirfield. And they came over, and of course they were saying how much trouble they had. And I couldn't understand, what was your trouble? Well, one of them had three-putted 13 times, the other one 14, and the other one 15. Now I understood why they had trouble. So, but then I came back in 64, and that's all I really knew about it, other than the home. And of course, Arnold came here in 60, lost by a shot to Kilnagel. And, that's what I knew about St. Andrews. I knew St. Andrews, obviously, from previous years, but that's really what my knowledge was. So when I stepped on it in 64, all of a sudden to step out of the clubhouse, step there, look at the first tee, look at what was there, see the town, see everything, I fell in love with it immediately. And I've had a love affair with it ever since.
Stephanie, front right, please.
Hi, Jack. It's great to see you back in St Andrews. You've obviously had huge success here over the years, but what does it mean to you to be made an honorary citizen of the town?
What was the last part? I didn't hear your question.
What does it mean to you to be made an honorary citizen of the town?
Well, I think that's pretty special. That's why I'm back, obviously. There's a lot of reasons to be back. The 150th anniversary, and a lot of other reasons in the tournament and the whole thing. But this is why I'm back. I'm back because of that. I wouldn't be back for the other reason. But that's pretty special. I mean, it's only 2 Americans ever been honored. I think I'd have to think that that's something pretty special. I'm very flattered by that, and I thought that was very, I'm sure it'll be a very humbling experience tomorrow.
Okay, next question, Juan, back right.
So the fact that we can still measure the best golfers of the world in this golf course in St. Andrews over all these decades.
I'm not understanding it at all.
That the fact that we can measure who are the best golfers in the world still in St. Andrews in the same scenario than 50 years ago or over the time, no? And maybe the materials and the distance and other things have changed, but you can still compare the magic of somebody playing here 50 years ago with the magic of somebody playing here now, or the touch, or the grit, or all these things, so of a champion.
I'm trying to figure out what you're asking me.
So I'm trying to explain.
The magic of the guys that played here 6 years ago?
No.
Or 60 years ago?
So
60,
from 60 years ago, you can compare the touch of somebody
Yeah, the game,
60 years
the game
ago with
hasn't-
the touch now. No, so
The
yeah.
game has changed quite a bit, but St. Andrews hasn't.
That's it, yeah.
And sure, St. Andrews has had a little bit of length added to it. The old course has, but the guy, it's the length has been added, to try to sort of compromise the golf ball of today. And but it's still, you still got to play golf. You still have those pesky little bunkers out there that grab your ball every time you hit an errant shot. And, you hit one out there and you play it out sideways and you say, why did I hit it here? Well, somebody hit it here 60 years ago or 100 years ago, and they had the same problem. They hit it right out here sideways. They got in your way, and they haven't really, I don't know whether they changed any locations. I think they changed a few locations, but not a dramatic number. But I think the Beardies were changed a little bit back about midway when I was playing. And but you still got to play golf. If you really play well and play smart at St. Andrews, you're playing like you do at most of the seaside golf courses. You're playing by where the bunkers are, and you're playing. If you play smart, really play smart, you're going to probably take a couple of chances during the week, but most of the time you don't. In other words, when I won at Muirfield, I'd planned myself out, and I had 4 drivers a day. And the last day, I had a little wind in my face at 14, and I elected, instead of hitting 3 wood, I hit driver. And I knocked it right in the friggin' bunker. It almost cost me the tournament. Discipline is such an important part of playing over here. And you get frustrated. Once you get frustrated, then say, bye-bye. We'll see you next time. Because that's what happens. You've got to just be patient, and you've got to really just sort of play by what the golf course gives you. You can't try to take any more.
Okay, next question, Alex in the middle, please.
Yeah, Jack, you have a philosophy on how to play Augusta National. and when guys come to you, you explain to them what you would do necessarily. What's your philosophy around here?
Well, I just went through it a little bit. I mean, basically, it's by where the bunkers are. I mean, the first hole, I just make sure that I take a club and I can't reach the burn on the left as it comes back. So, I mean, you could drive it down there, but you get plenty of room to drive it down there. But why hit it there? You're only going to play a wedge from just short of that. And, you know, the second hole, you really are dealing with, I can't remember the name of the bunker that sits out of the turns on number 2. But you're playing by that. And of course on the right. You're trying to play in between what your hazards are. St. Andrews is, what is it? St. Andrews is only about 94 acres, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty small. It's not a big piece of land.
It's a very small piece of property. And of course it just goes out and it comes back. And your width is what you have between, you know, 2 holes. Every hole adds up to 18. Every green does. And so you try to keep it in, just keep it in between that. I mean, St. Andrews is played to the left. And if you're going to miss it, you miss it left. And most of the time, and occasionally there's a bad problem left, but not too often. Most of your problems are right. You're out of bounds, and your big bad bunkers and so forth are on the right. And so the philosophy is to keep the ball favoring the center of the golf course. Play the club that you need to play off the tee that doesn't get you in a bunker. As it relates to the greens, you're going to get the ball on the green. It's just, you know, whether you can putt or not. First time I played here in 64, let's see, I think I was 149, I think, the first 2 rounds, and I'd had 41 putts. And that's what you have in the wind, and it was bad weather. Then I shot 66, 68 the last 2 rounds, and wind dropped out, and then I made some putts. But putting is really difficult in the wind, and particularly on this golf course, because the wind just sort of pushes it across the green. So you got to figure out that you try not to leave a ball at a place where you leave yourself an impossible putt. In other words, like at number 2, you've got the Himalayas. I don't think you want to leave the ball where you're putting out of there. You want to try to hit the ball, keep the ball to the right of it, so you're putting back up into the hill. It's the same type of thing pretty much through the golf course. Third hole, I guess, has that little bunker on the left. You got to hit the ball. You just don't want to ever be in that bunker and short side yourself. You got to be to the right of that little bunker, so you're not paying off of the slope. And it's right all through the golf course, Alex. It's the same thing.
Okay, Doug, we'll go with you next, please.
First of all, Jack, following up on Memorial, have you made a birdie this year?
I made a birdie last weekend. I lipped out for a hole-in-one, and I left it that far away, and I fortunately got it in. Playing with Gary. Gary says, "I'm not going to make you putt that." He says, "That's good." So I did make a birdie.
Very good.
I played 9 holes since the Memorial.
I wanted to ask you, as many memories as you have here, what would be your one single, probably strongest memory of St. Andrews? And if you can remember, what would be the one shot you'd love to have back?
One shot I would love to have back? I don't think I have any here, Doug. I mean, I wasn't going to win in 64. I think Sanders would like to have his putt back in 70. I don't want to give that back to him. I felt bad for him, but it's golf. You got to finish the last hole. And 78, I didn't really have any. I mean, I won by a couple of shots, but I just stayed in front of the field the last 9 holes. And I don't think I was ever in contention again. So I don't really have anything I'd like to have back. Well, I suppose I do. I try to avoid hell whenever I can. I think I took about 4 shots to get out of that one in 95.
But I guess you've had the 2 wins here, and then an incredibly warm reception when you finished here in 05. Do any of those 3 years, I guess, stand out over the others? Any of those 3 years or moments stand out over the others?
Well, probably 78, I suppose. I mean, 70 came back because of, I'd won at St. Andrews, and Jones had always said, that a golfer's resume is not complete unless he's won at St. Andrews. And so that was 70, but 78, the people were just unbelievable. I mean, they were out hanging off the rooftops, out the windows, walking up the 18th fairway. The last hole was dangerous when people were running all over you. They had, I don't know how many security guys I had trying to keep the people off of us. And then, of course, me is my typical. I'm sitting there, got tears running down my eyes as I'm walking up, because I get pretty sentimental about that kind of stuff. I remember my caddy Jimmy hit me on the back. He says, "Laddie," he says, "we got another hole to finish. Get with it." So anyway.
Okay, next question will move to the right, please. Ewan.
Jack, Greg Norman is going to be a pretty notable absentee from past champion events here this week. Can I ask what you make of that situation? Is it sad?
I don't know much about it, to be very honest with you.
Well, the RNA did not invite him to the past champion dinner or past...
I really don't know anything about what they did.
Okay.
I mean, I know that they did that, but I don't know anything more than that.
Do you think his reputation has been harmed or affected
what?
by... Greg's reputation, do you think it has been harmed or affected by his involvement with the Live Golf?
Well, let me just sum this up with a couple of words. First of all, Greg Norman's an icon in the game of golf. Okay? He's a great player. We've been friends for a long time. And regardless of what happens, he's going to remain a friend. And but unfortunately, he and I just don't see eye to eye in what's going on. I'll basically leave it at that. Okay? That fair enough?
Steve in the middle there, back, please.
Jack, back in the day after 70 and 78, did you put anything in the claret jug for a special drink?
I have never put anything in a claret jug. I know it's a claret jug, but I always thought it was disrespectful to be drinking out of it. But I see guys that have done it in the future, in the past, but I always respected it. They cleaned it out before I got there, and I didn't want to dirty it up.
Did your kids have any moments with it?
I'm sorry?
Did your kids have, what was your kids' reaction to the claret jug?
My kids' reaction? They just looked to see if there was any wine in it. If there wasn't any wine, they didn't care about it. Is that about right? No, I never used the claret jug for anything other than what it symbolized. Champion golfer of the year, and I'm delighted to have been able to retain that twice. Here, 3 times the same with Muirfield.
Okay, and Matt, right at the back there, please.
Yeah, given the historic significance of what's going to happen tomorrow, wonder if you could talk about your relationship, your memories of Bob Jones.
Well, I mean, I can go for hours on Bob Jones, but I go back to 1955 when I first met Mr. Jones. I was playing at the U.S. Amateur. I was 15 years old at the Country Club of Virginia, James River course. And it was sort of a windy last practice round. And there's a long par 4, and I hit a 3-wood into the green and got it on the green. And there was this gentleman in a cart, and I didn't know what Bob Jones looked like at the time. And he was there, and I finished the round. They said, "Jack, Mr. Jones would like to say hello to you." Okay. So I went over to the cart, and he said, "Jack, I'm Bob Jones." I said, "I've been here for a little over an hour." And he says, "You're only the 3rd person that's reached this green in 2 today. Congratulations." I said, "Thank you, sir." I left. That was about it. We went to dinner that night. He was a speaker at the dinner. After the dinner, we were walking out, and he caught up with me. My father was with me. He caught up with me, and he said, he said, "Jack," he says, "I think I'm going to come out and watch you play a few holes tomorrow." Okay. Bob Jones is going to come out and watch me, 15-year-old Jack Nicklaus, play some holes of golf. Well, anyway, I kept looking over my shoulder. And I had Bob Gardner, who was Bob Gardner was a Walker Cup and World Cup player, who I played with later. And I had him 1 down after 10. So I was doing pretty well. On down the 10th fairway came this cart, and it was Bob Jones. And we got there, and he watched me play 11, 12, and 13. I went bogey, bogey, double bogey. He looked at my dad, and he said, "Charlie," he says, "I don't think I'm doing Jack much good here." So he excused himself. I left. I got back to even, and I lost the last hole. But that was my first experience with Jones. The second experience was 1957, and he came to the USG or US JC juniors at Ohio State when I was 17, and he presented the trophy, and we had a nice conversation and so forth there. And then when I qualified for the Masters, there was a note in my locker. Jack, he says, well, I'd like to have you and your father come down and see me at my cabin during the tournament. That was a very nice gesture. So we went down, and that gesture was there every year. And so I really got to know quite a bit about him. He'd talk about his stories, talk about Sterling Maiden, talk about how he had, he talked about he won at Scioto in 1926, where I grew up. It was just conversation of how to play golf and do things and so forth. And I gleaned a lot from that. And so I became a very, big fan of Bob Jones. I was always a big fan, but my dad's idol was Bob Jones. My dad, when they played the Walker Cup match, or Ryder Cup matches at Scioto in 1931, and my dad used to look a lot like Jones. He parted his hair in the middle, and he was an 18-year-old kid at the time, and he came walking by the clubhouse. They said, "Oh, hey, Mr. Jones, come in here. You come in here." So my dad never passed up anything like that. So off he went into the clubhouse as Bob Jones sat down. They ordered him a drink and so forth and so on. Finally, they figured out who he was. Out of here, kid. But anyway, my dad was a big fan. And when I won the Open in '62, I got a note from Jones right after the Open, and he said, that 4-foot putt you hold in 17, he says, when you hold that thing going down the hill, he said, I came right out of my chair. Which obviously he couldn't, but that was his expression of saying he was excited. So we had a very nice relationship, and I remember the last thing that I had with Jones was when I turned pro. Well, it wasn't the last thing, but I forget the letter I have, which I've still got it in a museum, of about how he had hoped that I would remain an amateur, and how nobody had been in the amateur ranks since he was, and they thought I could really help the game of golf and so forth and so on. And he says, however, as I understand what pulls at you to play professional golf and so forth and so on. And he finished the letter up. He says, I've had an awfully nice relationship with Spalding through all these years. I think you maybe ought to talk with Spalding, which was kind of funny because I got a big kick out of that. But he was a good friend. Never saw him hit a shot.
Martin, back left, please.
Jack, I can see that you've got a number of family members in the room
Can't
here.
see. Where are we?
Jack.
Right at the back left there, Jack.
I'm sorry?
I can see you've got a number of family members in the room here today. How important is it for them to be part of what's happening here in St Andrews this week for you?
I think it was very special that they wanted to come. They were here when I finished in 2005, and they're here again today. And that's very special to me, and to think that they want to come watch their old man, say a few words, I think is very nice. I was very, very honored by that.
Louine, front left, please, right here.
Jack, when do you think golf was at its most watchable? Was it in, when you were at your heyday and there were so many different types of golfers, or do you think it's now?
Well, I think golf has gone through a variety of periods. I think golf was golf prior to Palmer. And, you knew a little bit about Hogan and Snead and so forth, but you never really watched them. Then Arnold came along and they started having television. And Arnold sort of popularized the game from a television standpoint and brought more media and more awareness of the game, I think. I think that the era that we played in was a good era. We had a lot of very good players. I think then came along Tiger's era. And Tiger had it pretty much by himself for a while. And then when Tiger got hurt, the other guys actually got a chance to win a golf tournament. And they learned how to win. So when Tiger came back, he had some competition. And those guys had learned how to play during that period of time, I think have become a great number of players. There are more good players in the game today than we've ever had. I think the game is, from a television standpoint, good gracious, and a popularity standpoint, what COVID, is really, people flocked to the game of golf with COVID. but they've also, we've seen the game grow and see television. You can watch any golf tournament in the world almost today on television. And you turn it on, you say, oh, I want to go watch something in Africa, I want to watch something in Europe, I want to watch something in Asia. No matter where you are, you're going to be able to watch it. And, that will continue to popularize the game of golf. And so I think golf is probably in as good a state as it's ever been as far as the growth of the game, and see that the number of good players that there are today. I think it's really fantastic.
Okay, and we'll take our final question just back right here, please.
Hi, Jack. I was wondering if you could take your mind back to 1970 on the 18th hole, in regulation as well as in the playoff. Because in regulation, you hit it right up on the green or close to it and three-putted. And of course,
I did?
Yeah. Oh, I thought you remembered. Sorry.
Did I three-putt?
Well, you were just off the green and three-putted. I just read it in your book, and you were pretty upset.
Really? Did I?
But then Doug missed his
I
putt.
didn't remember that three-putt. I thought, I maybe just off the green, I maybe got it up and missed the putt for a birdie.
Right. But anyway, I'm just curious, in the playoff, when you took your sweater off, you had that one-stroke lead, and yet went right at the green.
I was hot.
Yeah. So if you could just talk about that. How good a shot was that in your memory as far as how it ranks with the great shots you hit?
Well, Jaime, in 1964, I drove it on the green all 4 days. The first round with the driver and the last 3 rounds with the 3-wood. So it wasn't a big feat to get the ball to the green. In 70, I got to the 18th hole, and we were dead downwind, and we were playing from a shorter tee. So it wasn't a matter of getting the ball to the green. I just wanted to be free enough to swing. So that's why I took the sweater off. And I hit it. Of course, we went right on through the green. If it hadn't had the rough behind the green, I think it would have been out of bounds. And hit a decent chip down to about 5 feet, and then I made the putt. That was what I did. And I'm sure I've circumvented your question. What was it?
No, it seemed like it was a bold move. You had a one-stroke lead, and yet you hit a very bold shot. And
well, what do you want me to do? Lay it up back in the fairway and play that day when we turned the loop, they clocked the wind at 56 mile an hour. So it was really windy. So I had a lot of wind behind me. I didn't think I'd want to be pitching into that green. So I wanted to hit the ball into the green, onto the green somewhere, so that I wasn't going downwind. And that was sort of my thought process. I didn't really dream that I'd knock it through the green, but I hit it pretty good.
Thank you.
Well, Jack, thank you.
That was still a small ball, Jaime. In 70. Yeah.
Jack, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Best of luck this afternoon and with the ceremony tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good to see you all again.